The ceasefire announcement plays on every working screen. The president's face is calm, measured, rehearsed. Behind him, flags stand motionless. He uses words like stabilization and transition. He does not use words like normal because he knows better. In living rooms across the country, people exhale. Some cry, some open a bottle they have been saving. Most just sit there, numb, waiting for the relief that never fully arrives. The guns have stopped, but the squeeze is just beginning. You wake up the next morning expecting something to feel different. It doesn't. The power is still on a schedule. The grocery store is still half empty. Your job is still frozen in limbo. The war is over on paper, but the machinery that kept your life running is still broken. You check your phone. The news talks about peace. The bank app talks about withdrawal limits. Your boss talks about furloughs. Nothing matches. This is the gap between what ended and what begins. Outside, the streets look almost normal. Cars move. People walk, but the rhythm is wrong. Traffic lights blink yellow because the grid is still patched and fragile. Gas stations have lines that stretch for blocks, not because there is no fuel, but because no one believes the fuel will last. The grocery store opens at 10 and closes at 4. The pharmacy takes appointments now. The library is a charging station. Every familiar space has new rules, and no one can tell you when the old rules come back. This is the part no one warned you about. The war ending does not mean the damage stops. It means the damage becomes your problem. The first week after the ceasefire is a strange kind of quiet. The news cycle slows. The emergency alerts stop. The doom scrolling tapers off because there is nothing new to scroll. But the tension does not leave. It just moves inward. You start counting things. How much cash you have. How many meals are in the pantry. How many times you can fill the tank before the account runs dry. You are not panicking. You are calculating. At work, if you still have work, everything is different. Meetings are shorter. Projects are paused. No one talks about next quarter because no one knows what next quarter looks like. Your manager uses phrases like wait and see and fluid situation. You nod because arguing is pointless. The company is bleeding. You can see it in the empty desks and the canceled orders. Some people are let go. Others are asked to do more with less. You fall somewhere in between, useful enough to keep, but not valuable enough to feel secure. The paperwork starts. Insurance claims, aid applications, damage reports. You need proof of everything. Receipts you threw away, photos you never took, documents that were digital and are now gone because the server was in a city that no longer has power. You spend hours on hold. You fill out forms that ask questions you cannot answer. You resubmit. You wait. The process is designed for a system that still works. That system does not exist anymore. At home, routines collapse and rebuild in smaller shapes. You stop planning meals a week out. You cook what you have and hope the store restocks before you run out. You stop driving unless you need to because gas is expensive and uncertain. You stop expecting delivery because delivery is a luxury now. Everything that used to be automatic now requires a decision. Every decision costs time. Every hour feels longer. The kids notice. They ask why the internet cuts out. Why the lights go off at night. Why you say no more often. You try to explain, but the explanation is too big and too boring. So you simplify. You say the world is fixing itself, and it takes time. They accept it because they have no choice. But you see the change in them. Less noise, more worry. They are learning too early that safety is not permanent. Supply chains are not invisible anymore. You see them now in every gap. The missing item on the shelf. The delayed shipment notification. The handwritten sign that says no ETA. The economy is not frozen. It is just fractured. Some things move. Some things sit. No one can predict which is which. Trucks still roll, but fewer of them. Drivers are harder to find. Fuel is rationed at the depot level, prioritized for medical and infrastructure loads. Freight costs triple. Retailers pass it on. A can of soup that cost $2 now costs $5. A bag of rice that cost $10 now costs $22. Your paycheck, if it comes, does not grow with it. Imports slow to a trickle. Ports are functional but cautious. Insurance companies are skittish. Ships sit offshore waiting for clearance that takes days instead of hours. The goods that do arrive are inspected harder. Customs is overwhelmed. Containers stack up. Some are abandoned. Some are sold at auction. The global system is still breathing, but it is labored and shallow. Parts become the bottleneck. A broken water pump waits 3 months for a replacement. A hospital ventilator sits idle because a circuit board is backordered. A factory stops production because a sensor failed, and the sensor is made overseas, and the factory overseas is not taking orders. Everything is connected. Every break spreads. You adapt. You buy used. You repair instead of replace. You learn to live with things that do not work perfectly. The dishwasher makes a noise but still cleans. The car's check engine light stays on but still runs. You tolerate inefficiency because efficiency is a memory. The power grid is the spine of everything, and the spine is cracked. Rolling blackouts are the new policy. They call it load management. You call it sitting in the dark. The schedule is posted online when the internet works and on paper when it doesn't. Your neighborhood gets 4 hours off every day. Sometimes it is morning, sometimes it is night. You stop fighting it and start planning around it. You charge everything when the power is on. Phones, laptops, battery banks, flashlights. You cook in bursts. You do laundry in windows. You heat one room and close the doors. It feels medieval, but it works. The people who complain the loudest are the ones who refuse to adjust. They want their old life back. You just want to stay warm. Water follows power. When the pumps go down, pressure drops. Boil advisories go out. You boil everything even when the advisory is lifted because trust is gone. You keep jugs filled. You rotate them. You never let the reserve run dry. It is a small thing, but it is the thing that keeps you calm when the taps slow to a drip. Fuel becomes currency, not literally, but close. The people who have it move freely. The people who do not stay home. Stations run dry by noon. Lines form at dawn. You learn which stations get deliveries and when. You learn to keep your tank above half, because empty is a death sentence in a world where distance equals access. Food is where the aftermath becomes intimate. Prices rise every week. The grocery store stops printing prices on the shelves because they change too fast. You check your cart total twice before you check out. You put things back. You swap brands. You buy the dented cans and the bruised fruit. Pride is expensive. Survival is cheap. The selection shrinks. Whole aisles are reduced to a single shelf. The pasta section has 3 kinds instead of 30. The cereal aisle looks like a mouth missing teeth. The meat counter is a gamble. Sometimes there is chicken. Sometimes there is nothing. You stop expecting variety. You start expecting substitutes. People hoard again. Not like the early days, but in waves. Rumors move faster than restocks. Someone says the rice is gone, so the rice is gone. Someone says the formula is coming, so the formula vanishes in an hour. You try to stay ahead of the waves, but you cannot predict social fear. So you build a buffer slowly. Rice, beans, pasta, oats, canned vegetables, peanut butter, shelf-stable milk. Foods your family already eats, stored in amounts that get used and replaced. You stop judging yourself for not having the perfect stockpile. Perfect does not exist. Good enough keeps you fed. Healthcare tightens. Hospitals are running, but barely. Staff shortages are constant. Nurses work doubles. Doctors see twice as many patients. Wait times stretch from hours to days. Emergency rooms are for emergencies only. If you can walk in, you probably should not. Elective procedures are postponed indefinitely. Surgeries that were scheduled are now pending. Follow-ups are phone calls. Physical therapy is a video. Prescriptions are filled late because pharmacies are understaffed and suppliers are unreliable. You learn to call 3 days early. You learn to ask for generics. You learn to be patient with exhausted workers. Medication is inconsistent. The pills you took for years are suddenly unavailable. The pharmacy offers a substitute. You take it because you have no choice. Sometimes it works the same. Sometimes it does not. You adjust. You monitor. You hope. You keep a folder now. A paper folder with printed lists, medications, doses, allergies, doctor names, emergency contacts, insurance cards, copies of prescriptions. You keep it by the door because if something happens, you cannot rely on memory or a locked phone. The mental load is constant. You are not just managing your health. You are managing your family's health in a system that is managing its own collapse. Information is chaos. The news is slow and vague. Updates are delayed for verification, which is responsible but frustrating. Social media fills the gap with rumors. Someone's cousin says the grid is failing. Someone's neighbor says the banks are freezing accounts. Someone's post says the grocery stores are empty. Half of it is exaggeration. A quarter of it is true. The rest is panic dressed as certainty. You learn to filter. You pick 2 sources you trust. One national, one local. You check them twice a day. You ignore the rest. You stop reacting to headlines that demand your fear. You stop sharing posts that feel urgent but source nothing. You become boring and skeptical, and it saves you from bad decisions. Offline communication becomes real again. You keep a battery radio. You write down phone numbers. You print maps. You know which neighbors have generators and which ones have medical training. You build small, quiet networks because when the digital world blinks out, the physical one is all you have. The misinformation is not always malicious. Sometimes it is just fear. People want control, so they create certainty where none exists. You cannot fix that. You can only insulate yourself from it. Security is uneven. Crime rises in pockets. Theft is opportunistic. Copper is stripped from construction sites. Fuel is siphoned from trucks. Catalytic converters vanish overnight. Desperation creates markets, and markets create risk. Scams multiply. Fake utility workers, fake aid programs, fake job offers. People are tired and scared, and that makes them easy targets. You learn to verify everything. You ask for badges. You call the company back. You never give information to someone who contacts you first. Neighborhoods change. Some come together. Block groups form. People share updates, watch each other's homes, and pool resources. It is not utopia. It is pragmatism. Others fracture. Arguments over noise, water, parking, and fairness. Stress turns small disputes into loud ones. You keep your head down. You help when you can without overcommitting. You stay friendly without being vulnerable. You lock your doors, you keep valuables out of sight. You avoid looking like an easy target or a lucrative one. The goal is not to win. The goal is to avoid conflict entirely. Work is fractured. Some industries surge. Repair services, logistics, utilities, basic manufacturing. Others collapse. Luxury goods. Fragile supply chains. Anything that relied on cheap imports and stable credit. Layoffs come in waves. Your company cuts 10%. Then another 5%. Then it restructures. Departments merge. Roles disappear. You survive, but the workload doubles. You are doing 2 jobs for the same pay because the alternative is no job at all. Banks are slow and stingy. Withdrawals are limited. Loans are frozen. Credit lines are cut. Fees appear for things that used to be free. The system is protecting itself and you are outside the wall. You adjust your household. You cut subscriptions. You cancel plans. You delay purchases. You keep a cash buffer because digital money is only real when the system says it is. You save receipts. You document everything. In a slow system, proof is power. The emotional weight is real. You are grieving the old life while building a new one. The old habits stop working, but the new ones feel like failure. You have to let go of what was and accept what is without falling into despair. It is harder than it sounds. The global system is wounded. Trade is slower. Sanctions remain. Shipping routes are longer and more expensive. Insurers price risk into every contract. Goods still move, but at a cost that trickles down to your cart total. Alliances have hardened. Locks form around energy and technology. Countries compete for supply, locking in contracts, guarding ports, and rewriting trade routes that once spanned the world. What used to be invisible logistics is now front-page news because every shipment carries leverage. Companies that built for speed scramble for resilience. Some diversify, splitting factories across borders, stockpiling parts, training backups. Others collapse under debt and broken chains, leaving empty plants and quiet towns behind. The old global market is now a patchwork of regional deals and political bargaining, where access matters more than efficiency, and every transaction hints at who owes whom. Recovery is uneven. Places with local energy, stable governance, and domestic production stabilize faster, building islands of reliability in a restless sea. Their lights stay on, shelves refill, buses run close to schedule. Others struggle with blackouts, ration cards, and waves of migration as people search for steadier ground. The gap between regions widens until it feels like different centuries sharing the same calendar. You see it in the news, but you feel it in the price of everything: bread, fuel, rent, repairs. Each receipt is a quiet lesson in scarcity. You stop expecting a return to normal. Normal is gone. The old rhythms of abundance and choice fade into memory, replaced by waiting lists and careful substitutions. The new baseline is lower, harder, and less predictable. Plans stretch, then break, then reform. You learn that disappointment wastes energy you cannot spare. So you let go of the promise that things will bounce back, and you begin shaping a life that works inside limits instead of fighting them. You build habits for constraint, not abundance. You do not need a perfect plan. You need a repeatable one. Priorities first: water, food, light, heat, meds, cash flow, and documents. You write them down. You keep them visible. When something goes wrong, you do not debate. You follow the list, one step at a time, one decision at a time. Momentum matters more than brilliance. You track what you actually use, not what you imagined you would. You rotate supplies so nothing quietly expires. You avoid waste because waste is just hunger in disguise. You keep communication simple, short messages, clear check-ins, no drama. You set meeting points. You name out-of-town contacts. You practice once so it is not new when it matters, discovering the small frictions while the stakes are low. You give your household small tasks: cooking, cleaning, inventory. It reduces fear and keeps everyone useful. Even children feel steadier when their hands are busy and their role is known. Arguments shrink when there is bread to bake and water to pour. You do one calm thing every day that improves stability. Refill water, cook a meal, check a filter, pay a bill. Small steps compound, turning days into progress instead of drift. You also learn to look outward. Neighbors trade skills. Someone fixes radios. Someone grows herbs. Someone knows how to mend. Trust rebuilds in fragments, earned by showing up and keeping promises. You discover that resilience is not just what you store, but who you stand with when systems falter. The world after World War III does not end. It adjusts. Borders tighten and reopen. New routes form. Old powers fade. New ones rise. Life narrows, but it does not disappear. And so do you. You adjust. You grieve what was lost, then make room for what remains. You measure success differently now. Fewer comforts, more continuity. You are not waiting for rescue or a miracle. You are building a steady, workable today, and then another tomorrow, proving that even after everything breaks, something solid can still be made. You keep going, not because it is easy, but because stopping costs more. Each morning you reset the basics and choose patience over panic. You notice small wins, a full jug, a warm room, a shared laugh. These moments anchor you when headlines roar. The future stays uncertain, yet your path is clear enough for the next step. In that narrow beam of light, you find courage, and it carries you forward. This is how you endure together, shaping tomorrow from today's careful choices with steady hearts.